Thank you for visiting my channel, Medical Assistant with Miss K. If this is your first time visiting, welcome. My name is Kendra, aka Miss K. I'm a medical assistant instructor, and if you are a returning viewer or subscriber, welcome back. So today, guys, I'm going to be sharing a little bit of my personal story with you guys. And the reason why I wanted to do this is because, first of all, I tend to want to keep my personal life and my my medical assistant life separate, right? But they've been kind of intertwining here and there, and especially back in April when I spoke at the Medical Assistants Conference, the Virginia Society of Medical Assistant Conference. I sold my books there, and one of those books happened to be my story. And I remember thinking, like, wow, some of these ladies, they bought my book. And some of these ladies, they follow me on YouTube. They don't know that side of me. And so, first of all, I just want to thank all of you guys that have been subscribed to this channel from day one. Some of you guys, you know who you are. You're here every video, every time I'm live. You guys are there from day one. Some of you have been there. And I never would have started this channel if it wasn't for my students asking me to. Well, you know what? I don't want to say I never would have, because the thought crossed my mind, because you guys, some of you know I have other YouTube channels besides this one. And one of them I've had for years. And so I was already doing YouTube, and then my students asked me to do this one. So the thought did cross my mind, but it was actually my students asking me several times, Miss K, can you make a YouTube channel with medical assistant? And I finally said, okay, let me go ahead. The thought crossed my mind before, let me go ahead and do it. And so I just want to thank you guys that have been hanging in there. And one thing that I don't want this channel to only be about, this is a medical assistant channel. I don't want it to only be about certification. While I know my certification videos are helpful, and don't worry, I'll do more in the future. I'm not done with those, but I want it to be a channel where, medical assistant students can come for encouragement on their journey. They can come for skills videos and, different lessons and things like that, and, certification exam practice. But I also want this to be a space for those of you who are already medical assistants. Like, I don't want you to feel like, oh, I passed my certification, I don't need this channel anymore. I want this to be a safe place for medical assistants. I want it to be a channel where I can help you, whether you're fresh out of school or you've been in the field 20 years like I have. And so that's why I'm going to start doing other kinds of videos here, not just teaching videos, but I'm going to start with this video here. I'm going to just tell you guys a little bit about me, because like I said, I sold my books and I've already started kind of intertwining. So I'm gonna just give you guys just a little bit of my story, tell you who I am. So first of all, I'm from DC, born and raised, and I was raised by my mother. I'm the youngest of her 4 kids, and I was and I share this stuff that I'm telling you guys, I share in my book. That's what I'm going to tell you guys here now. And I also want to share because I want you guys to know that I relate to a lot of you, okay? Many of the students that I've had in my classroom and also here on YouTube and Facebook, I relate to a lot of what you guys are experiencing, whether you're a single mother, whether you are the first person in your family who graduated high school, or furthering your education beyond high school, the first person in the medical field. Like, I get it. Whether you come from poverty or whatever, I can relate to a lot of that, and so that's another reason why I want to share this too, because, I am someone who I wasn't always who you see today, okay? And you'll find that out in a few minutes. But anyway, so youngest of 4 kids, my oldest sister, 20 years older than me. My mother, she had my brother and my sister when she was 15 and 16. She didn't have me till she was 35. So my oldest sister is literally 20 years older than me. My older sister and I, we don't talk. Long story short, she was very abusive to me when I was a little girl. And I don't share that to badmouth my sister. Let me just say that I love my sister. My sister has kids, my nieces and nephews. I have great relationships with them. But it's my truth, so that's why I'm sharing that. And like I said, I love my sister. If she was to call me today, I would have a relationship with her. But anyway, so I was abused by my sister when I was a toddler. My mother, she had got incarcerated, and so I had to live with my sister for a little bit, and she was very abusive toward me. She would beat me. She would she had a gas stove, turn the gas stove on, hold me over the stove. And so I experienced physical abuse. I experienced sexual abuse, molestation, and that molestation led to me having a sexual addiction even as a little girl. And most people, they don't understand how that could be possible, but from as young as 3 years old, I was already addicted to making myself have a climax. I would just say that. You guys know the word for that. And I didn't know what it was until I got older and I found out what it was. The person that molested me had brought me to that point, and that's how I was able to do it myself. Anyway, that lasted up until I was 10 years old. My mother died, and she had AIDS. And before my mother died, she was very sick. You're at the end stages of age, you can have Alzheimer's, and that's when my mother had Alzheimer's. And so she was not moving from the couch for days at a time. My grandmother actually passed away in the house, and my mother, she was, she never slept in the bed. She always slept on the couch. She was couch ridden. You know how they say bedridden. She was couch ridden. And so we didn't have food. We didn't have, our house was dirty. It was stinky. I would go to school to eat or go to one of my friends' house and eat and things like that. And then when my grandmother, she was actually my stepfather's mother. He was locked up, my mother's husband. And she was living with us. And one night she fell. And I was about, I don't know if I had already turned 10. I was 10 once my mother died, but I don't know if I was already 10 at this point. But my stepfather's mother passed away, and she was on the floor for days. And I was getting ready for school every day, walking over her. Why? At that age, being 9 or 10 years old, I'm old enough to know how to call the cops and call 911. I'm old enough to know how to do that. Why I didn't, I don't know. I recently shared that story online, and people were saying that I was lying and making that up. And I shared it because somebody else was sharing a story about how a little boy, his mother died, and he left her for days, and he was going to school, same thing. And I just shared, hey, my story is similar. And I shared about my grandmother. People were saying I was lying and all of that. Like, why would you do that? You're old enough to know better, which is true for the average child. But as I mentioned, I had been abused. I had been abused in so many ways that I was a very timid, a very meek child. I did not talk about what was happening to me when I was I've been molested several times by several different people throughout my life, from childhood up until I was a teenager. And so but back then I wasn't telling anything. It was even one point where I was on a bus and there was a man beside me feeling my legs the whole time. My aunt was at the front of the bus, and I didn't even tell her that when we got off the bus. So I don't know why I didn't speak up. But anyway, so long story short, my older brother ended up coming over. He's actually my cousin, but he's like my big brother. And that's when he realized that my grandmother was dead. Called 911. When they came, they realized she had been dead for days. The house was dirty. My mother didn't have food. They took me from the house and was going to put me in foster care. But luckily, one of my older aunts moved in with us. And so my mother, she didn't last long after that. She died shortly after that. Fast forward, my brother on my father's side, he was killed 6 months after that. I was 11 at that time, and he was 22 or 23. And so, fast forward, my grandfathers, my father's father and my mother's father, they both died my 11th grade year of school. And my mother's father, even still, I still get emotional when I think about him, because he was just, my granddaddy was just, oh my goodness, just everything. And so I've gone through a lot of things in life. I've experienced a lot of death in my life. Like I mentioned, abuse. Fast forward to, I told you guys my mom died when I was a teenager. I ended up living with my father. My father was very verbally abusive. He had an alcohol problem, so he would get drunk. He would call me names. He would call me ugly. He would talk about my mother and say I was going to be just like her, and tell me I was a mistake, and he was drunk when he got with my mother. Just all kinds of things that stuck with me. I'm 15, 16 years old. And so, you know, and my father, he's deceased now. And I know I'm kind of skipping around a little bit because I don't really have a outline of how I'm sharing this. I'm just trying to give you guys just a little bit about me, in no particular order. But my father, he did pass away back in 2021. And we had a better relationship. My father and I, we were actually supposed to go out of town. We were supposed to go, me, him, and my daughter were supposed to go out of town that weekend, August 13th, 2021. We were going on a road trip, and he actually died that morning. But we had a good relationship at the end. Not too bad. My father, we got it together later, but that's just the truth. But anyway, and so after my mother died, I never felt love. So I was just looking for love in all the wrong places, from boys and just all over the place. And I just kind of became promiscuous. And I told you guys the addiction that I had from 3 years old to 10. When my mother died, it stopped. I kind of forgot about it. I moved in with my aunt, which is my mother's sister. And I just kind of forgot about it somehow. And about 15 or 16, it came back, and there goes that addiction again. You know what I mean? And so it led me on a path of promiscuity, right? And like I said, I know I'm kind of jumping around a little bit. I don't want this video to be very long, but I do want to give you guys this just so you can know a little bit more about me, the truth about me, and who I am and where I come from. I'm going to get into the medical assistant and what made me become a medical assistant. First of all, I wanted to be a doctor, but I didn't have the support of going to college, you know, financial aid and all that. So I didn't really have the support at the time. I had been being raised by my aunt, and then she put me, you know, she made me go live with my father because I was acting up, skipping school. And so living with my father, he wasn't helping with anything. So I just didn't have the tools and resources to be able to go to school. And I was actually intimidated too by the math and science. So anyway, who I call my second mom, if you guys hear me refer to my mom and my sisters, I'm referring to my second mom. She and my dad used to be together years ago. They actually grew up together. Their mothers were best friends. They knew each other since they were 6 years old. So this is who I'm referring to as my second mom. And she had 4 daughters. And so one of my sisters was a medical assistant. And I remember, you know, she would be in her scrubs every day and pulling her backpack, and she had the rolling backpack. And I just like, oh, I want to do that. And that's what made me go become a medical assistant when I was 18. And so that's how I started my medical assistant journey, really. And then, you know, I ended up getting pregnant with my daughter at 19. I had her at 20. I got hired on my externship, and I just always had a job. I started teaching back in 2011. I did that for a couple years, and I've always just kind of been back and forth between the office and the doctor's office and teaching. And I love both. When I'm teaching, I miss the office. When I'm in the office, I miss teaching. So right now, I actually do both. Like, I teach part-time, but I do PRN. I go into a cardiology office as needed. But anyway, and I hope I'm not, I know I'm all over the place. I'm sorry, guys. I didn't have a plan when I started doing this video. I just said, I'm just going to give a little bit of me. Well, give a lot of me so you guys can know who I am. And, I have done a lot of things that I'm not proud of, but they all contributed to who I am today and the knowledge that I have today and why I'm able to help so many people. Even as a medical assistant working in the doctor's office during the day, in my 20s, I decided I was going to go become a stripper. So I'm working as a medical assistant during the day, as a stripper at night. I did that for a few months. And what made me stop was because I went sober one night, and I remember a guy referred to me as, I think he called me the B word or a garden tool. Either one, I can't remember. I did put it in my book, but I was sober, and I was like, I'm not that, what am I doing? And so that night at the club, I never went back. And I share that to say that I get it. I've had students who were in my class and doing that very thing, working that very job while in school, paying cash. You know, A lot of people like to joke about the movie Players Club because Diamond, she was a stripper and paying for school, but that's the reality for a lot of people, even some of my students, and because I've lived that lifestyle for a short period of time, I was able to relate to that student. But anyway, and so I've done so many different things in my life, and I was so lost. And I am a Christian, and I do consider myself a woman of God, a virtuous woman now, but I remember I was at 9 years old. This was before my mother died. We had a church on the corner. I wasn't raised in church or anything like that, but I do remember my mother taught me how to pray. And that's what led me to want to go to church, because I remember my mother talked to me about God, and I wanted to go to church. So ever since then, from 9 years old, I would go to church, and throughout my life, I would still go to church. Even everything I was doing, I would still go to church. And I remember, I would be going out to the club, get in the house sometimes 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, but I had to go to church. I've even gone to church in my club clothes, to be real with you. And I remember I used to be in church, and I remember I used to see visions of me standing up there talking, and and I'm like, oh no, that would never be me. Fast forward, I'm not a minister, ordained minister, but I have ministered several times in church. I'm a poet, I'm a spoken word artist, so there's been plenty of times where I've done poetry at church, and I've spoken a few times at church when we had Millennial Sunday. My pastor had a few of us give the word or whatever. But I started changing my life around about 2013, 14, 15, around that time. And since 2015, I've been abstinent. Now, I told you guys I had an addiction, and so that lasted a long time. But in 2015, I decided that I was done. I was tired of the cycles. I wanted something different. And mind you, I'm working as a medical assistant in a doctor's office. I'm teaching. I know the risk of certain things that's out there. So I was safe, but I was still not being smart with my body and just all of that. And I just got tired of the cycles. And I said, you know what? I'm going to give my life to Christ, and I'm just going to, I gotta do different. I want different. At this time, my daughter's getting older. She didn't know about anything I had going on, but I'm like, I got to do something different. And so 2015, I decided I was going to be abstinent, and this 2024 now, and it's been 8 years. It'll be 9 years toward the end of this year that I've been abstinent. So I wanted to share that with you guys. I think I mentioned that on this channel a couple times before, but I just wanted to kind of give you guys some of my past, and I want to just, I've reached out to a few people that I want to have on the channel I want to know why they became a medical assistant. I want to know, why, how they got to the level that they are now, because these are people that I'm going to be bringing on that are in business. They found ways to make money outside of the office and business as a medical assistant. These are people who have, and I mean 6-figure earners that I've reached out to come on the channel just to share their story, and like me, came from nothing. And so if anybody is watching this, I want you to know that you can also have a hard life, have a hard childhood, come from nothing, come from poverty, and you can still, make something of yourself. And so many of my students, their stories are so similar to mine. So I'm pretty sure there's maybe somebody watching this and your story is probably similar to mine as well. And so that's another reason why I wanted to share that, because I just want people to make sure that people know that you are not alone. Many of my students, they say, I'm the first person to graduate high school. Like, nobody in my family has finished high school. That was for me. My mother stopped going to school in middle school. My father stopped going to school in high school. And I was the first of their kids to graduate high school. And so, well, not the first, my brother, my father's side did, but I mean the first of my mother's kids. But I don't know, I just felt led to share this. And so, I am not who I was back then. I have gone through a transformation, and when I share with people about my past, they can't believe it's because of who I am today. And that's why I say, that's how you know you've really been transformed, okay? That's true transformation. When people who know you now can't believe the person you used to be, And then the people that knew you back then can't believe the person you are now. That's how you know you've had true transformation, because the people that I used to hang with back then, like I was a wild child. I was out there. I was the crazy one, in the group, the Golden Girls. I was Blanche, living single crew. I was Regine, I was just always that one that was just out there and just with whatever. So people that knew me back then, they just cannot believe it. And I'm just thankful now that even some of those people back then that I used to hang with, they are coming to me now also wanting to change their life. And they're like, what can I do? Like, help me. And so I'm thankful for that, but I just wanted to share that. And I also, wanted to share, just my love for medical assistant. I mentioned that I wanted to be a doctor at first. And some people say, well, you can still do that. It's not too late. You're still young. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't even want to become a nurse. I love what I do. I love being able to go into the office when I want to. I love teaching. I love business. I have several businesses. And so I love this part of it. I don't want to go. That was my dream back then, but that's not my dream anymore, And so I just love to help people. I love to feel like I'm making a difference. Even today, being in the office that I was in today, just bringing my patients back and just smiling and talking to them, and it just feels so good, and just taking care of people feels good to me. I hope that me sharing my story and sharing my truth would maybe even inspire somebody else to share theirs, because I've had people come to me, they're like, I want to talk about my story. I don't know where to start. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings that I talk about, and I want to write a book, but I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Listen, there's this saying that says, when you're heard, you're healed. Some people just need to talk about what they've been through. For me, talking about things that I've been through and things that I've done, mistakes I've made, it has been healing for me. Like, even talking about it now, I've gone through a healing process throughout the years, but even talking about it now is healing for me. Some people are just in bondage simply because they can't talk about what they went through. And for those of you who have kids, talk to your kids. Talk to you, especially, if you notice you have a meek child or timid child like I was, talk to them. Make sure they know that they can come to you. Not that my mother did. And my mother did let me know I could tell her anything, but for some reason, I just still felt like I couldn't. So when you ask your kids questions, don't just say, is anybody doing this? Yes or no questions. Be specific. Has anybody touched you here? Has anybody done anything? Ask specific questions. So I do want to offer that as well. And one thing that I didn't mention, so I did mention that my father, he died in 2021. He died August 13, 2021. And a day before his funeral, a week or so later, my oldest brother, I found out, had been found dead. He had colon cancer. He had a bunch of things going on that I had no idea about. And so as I mentioned in the beginning, I've experienced a lot of death, okay? From my mother to my brother, to losing my grandparents. My grandmothers, I never met either of my grandmothers, but my grandfathers in the same year. My oldest nephew, he ended up getting killed. Someone broke into his house, and they were trying to burglarize the house and killed him. My aunt that raised me, so you guys know I mentioned that my aunt, my mother's sister, raised me. So from 10 years old to 27, this was the woman that was like, my mother. She was my mother's sister. She, outside of the time where she made me go live with my father, and that was because she was sick. I was a teenager. She didn't have any kids. She had took me into her home, and I was out of control. So she felt like me living with my father was the best thing. But anyway, she ended up passing away when I was 27. And that was actually harder. Losing my Aunt Trisha was actually harder than losing my mother, because it was hard. Don't get me wrong, being 10, and I was addicted to my mother. You hear me? I was obsessed. I was sleeping on top of her. Even though she was sick and she didn't bathe, I was still sleeping on top of my mother. And so don't get me wrong, it was hard, but I was an adult when I lost my Aunt Trisha, and I lost my mother and my aunt in very similar ways. They were on the life support. Both of them had already told people around them that, they didn't want to be on it. My Aunt Trisha told me she didn't want to be on it. Had to let my mother go, had to let my aunt go. I mean, literally, it was like identical, losing my mother all over again. And after my Aunt Trisha died, I couldn't even sleep without drinking. I just went on it took a long time. And I was 27. This was back in 2012. I was about to be 28. Well, actually, I think I had just turned 27. It was really hard. And then of course my brother and my father in 2021 back to back. And so I've experienced a lot of death, and it has made me look at life differently. It's made me not take life for granted, because at an early age I was exposed to the fact that tomorrow is not promised. And so I've looked at life differently. I have a daughter. I have one child, and she's about to go to college soon if she doesn't change her mind. But I appreciate life, and so I wanted to share that as well. I know I've had a couple of people even share that on the channel about things they've gone through about losing people. I get it. I'm sharing all of this to say that I understand you're not alone. I know that it's difficult. A lot of people lost people during, the pandemic, and don't even want to get into the deaths we experienced in our family from that. But I know it's hard. Try to enjoy life and cherish every moment with your loved ones. As I mentioned, tomorrow's not promised. Things can change from one moment to another. And so one thing I would inspire you to learn from my experience is just not to take anything or anybody for granted. If you have a loved one right now that you're not talking to, call them. Especially if it's something petty and this is somebody that you love, and if something happened to them, you will be devastated. Don't take it for granted that you will have that moment to talk to them. Take it from somebody who has experienced significant losses, and just know when that person's gone, you can't get them back. And I have a lot of regrets with people that I've lost. That's one thing that I can offer, is to not have to live in regret. That's one of the worst feelings. I'm just thankful for the people that he did put in my life. I'm thankful for my aunt who raised me. I'm thankful for my second mom to this day. She's still in my life. She came into my life when I was 11. She said, listen, these are your 4 sisters. And me having those sisters, and I'm the youngest of them as well, and watching them is part of the reason why I'm the person that I am. Like I said, one of them was a medical assistant. She inspired me to become a medical assistant. Then I have my other sisters who are just hustlers and business minded. And these were women that I was looking up to and watching, and they are a part of the reason why I am where I am today. So I'm just thankful. Even with everything that I've gone through, I'm thankful. We just have to find the good. As bad as our life experiences may have been, we have to find the good in it. Even if the good is the fact that you can help somebody else. Because there may be some things you may say, well, why did I have to go through that, right? It may be to just help somebody else. The things that I've experienced, I have been able to find some good in it. And one of those good things is being able to help somebody who has also gone through the same thing, and who is where I used to be and trying to get out of that place. So find the good in the bad. If you happen to be watching this and you're interested in reading my book, I'll leave it below. Also, I do have another YouTube channel. It's called Thinking Like a Virtuous Woman, where I inspire women to think like the woman in Proverbs 31, spiritually, relationally, and financially. So you can always, check that channel out as well if you want to, just come with me on the spiritual journey, But anyway, I just wanted to share that, and I feel better now just kind of getting some of that out, because I'll be honest with you, when those people bought my book and I'm like, okay, wait a minute, they're going to know about what I've been through. They're going to know about things that I've done. Oh my goodness. I'm like, let me just, on every other platform, I'm open about my story except this one. So I said, let me come on here, put it all out there. Let these people know what I've done, what I've been through. I'm pretty sure some other people can relate. And this is the thing, your mess, whether it's mess that you were born into, the mess that I was born into was being born into, an abusive sibling. And my mother was on drugs when she had me. And so I was born addicted to drugs. That's the mess I was born into. Then I had the mess I put myself into, the promiscuity, the, dancing at a strip club. Just, that's the mess I put myself into. But your mess can always turn into a message. Your mess can turn into a ministry. So it's all about what you make it. Okay, so I hope that this was inspiring to someone. Feel free to leave any questions, suggestions, or even prayer requests down in the description. Down in the comment section. And as always, you can always email me. Thank you again for visiting my channel. Be blessed.